I'm Eddie Muller, welcoming you back to Noir Alley. This week we detour from the familiar urban terrain of American noir to a European nation gripped by fear, hatred, and delusion. The film is Address Unknown, a prestige offering from Columbia Pictures in 1944 that clocks in at a swiftly paced 75 minutes. Now, within that span, you are going to see more cinematic artistry than you'd get in 8 or 10 other movies of this era combined. Much of it involves expressionistic camera work and art direction that will look familiar to fans of film noir. Only here, it serves a story with a deeper thematic significance than you'll find in the typical crime thriller. Harry Cohn is remembered by movie historians as the most vulgar of studio bosses, with hundreds of expletive-filled anecdotes to prove it. But it should also be remembered that during World War II, Harry Cohn was the only studio head with the guts to make films about what was actually happening in Nazi Germany. The 1944 Columbia picture None Shall Escape, released just months before Address Unknown, was extraordinary for being the first film to depict the government-sanctioned murder of Jews. And the film's notion of an international tribunal holding Nazis to account predicted the Nuremberg trials that were less than 2 years away. Address Unknown was written by Cressman Taylor in 1938. During a trip through Europe, the writer had been unnerved by the terror Nazis unleashed on the continent, and the idea for Address Unknown took shape. It comprises correspondence between a San Francisco art dealer, a Jew, and a German expatriate, a Gentile, who has returned to his homeland. Taylor originally sold the terse manuscript to Story magazine, America's most esteemed journal of short fiction. Editor Whit Burnett made only a single drastic change. He insisted that Catherine Cressman Taylor drop her first name, since the story was, quote, too strong to appear under the name of a woman. Eventually published by Simon & Schuster in 1939, the book became a sensation for the intimate, inexorable way it depicted a relationship between best friends torn apart by the rise of fascism. Over the years, the book's stature and its relevance has steadily increased, especially overseas. In France alone, it sold more than 600,000 copies. The movie rights were purchased by producer-director Sam Wood. In truth, he had less interest in the book's anti-fascist theme than he had in using it as a vehicle to boost the movie career of his daughter, Gloria, billed here as K.T. Stevens. To direct the picture, Wood chose his longtime associate, William Cameron Menzies, which is where all the artistry comes in. Menzies was at this point already a legend as a visionary production designer, with films like Things to Come and Gone with the Wind to his credit. But he didn't need a large-scale production to display his formidable skills. He's got barely more than a B budget on this one, but the visual impact is astonishing. Working from an adaptation by Lester Cole and a final script by Herbert Dalmas, Menzies sketched out the entire story, 800 finely rendered compositions that he'd bring to life with cinematographer Rudolph Maté. As a director, Menzies' pictorial style is as bold as the work of silent cinema greats like Sergei Eisenstein and Carl Theodor Dreyer. In 1944, nothing else in American movie theaters looked quite like this. Paul Lukas, a Hungarian Jew, knew Taylor's book and lobbied for the central role of Martin Schultz, and his casting proved fortuitous. A month before the film's premiere, he won the Best Actor Oscar for Watch on the Rhine, a much more romantic movie about World War II. His wife here is played by Austrian actress Mädi Christians, who'd been a star in Germany before fleeing to America during the rise of the Third Reich. For many European expats in the cast, including Austrian Karl Esmond and German Peter van Eyck, making this film was a way of personally spitting in Hitler's eye. Of course, both the book and the movie were banned in Germany for decades. Address Unknown is not your typical war film, which is why it's a timeless story that still resonates with readers and viewers. It's about how a normal person, you, me, our neighbor, gradually becomes a fascist. And why Address Unknown slipped into obscurity is a mystery, especially since it's the most perfectly realized film on the directorial resume of William Cameron Menzies. Millions more people have seen his campy 1953 sci-fi classic, Invaders from Mars, than have seen this film. Now, whatever the reason for its neglect, Noir Alley is thrilled to throw a spotlight on one of the most powerful and artistic films to emerge from Hollywood during World War II. Here is Address Unknown.